Madam Speaker, in this country, it is thought that fertilizer is only for maize farmers. No one ever thinks of providing fertilizer to growers of cotton, growers of cashew nut, and growers of other agricultural products. Everyone thinks that the farmers in Rift Valley, the North Rift, and Trans-Nzoia, Kitale, and those areas should be given seed, should be given fertilizer. No one ever imagines that to the fish farmer, the person with a fish pond or with a fish cage, to them fertilizer is equivalent to fish feed. No one is giving them fish feed. No one is giving our poultry farmers free feed or subsidized feed the same way we are doing to maize farmers. I am making this narration to reflect that the cotton farmers were completely ignored and disregarded by the government of the day. A lot of focus was on maize farmers in Kitale, in Rift Valley. When it came to cotton farmers, they were left on their own. As a result, cotton became untenable because the variety of cotton that we had required to be sprayed several times. The farms needed to be weeded several times. And Madam Speaker, an interesting story that my father told me before he passed on, he told me that the families of the days back, because of polygamy, families had a huge labor force. When the children were deployed to the cotton farms, they could cover acres upon acres in a day in terms of weeding, or in terms of spraying, or in terms of picking the cotton. And when you're harvesting cotton, Madam Speaker, for those who have not had that experience, if you harvest 1 acre of cotton, by the time it reaches evening, when you look back, it is a field that is white. Because when cotton is ready for harvest, the balls keep bursting and the white is exposed. So you cannot say that you harvest 1 acre and move on to the next acre. You have to keep repeating it. Madam Speaker, family sizes have reduced, and as a result, you don't have that labor to sustain the activities that are required in cotton farms. The solution has come in the way of BT cotton. Madam Speaker, there has been a conversation around genetically modified organisms, or GMO, in this country. But a decision was made that let us start with BT cotton. And Madam Speaker, I support BT cotton as long as we have gone through the necessary precautions that are required under the biosafety and other laws in this country. Because BT cotton reduces the amount of work required to tend to the cotton crop. It reduces the number of times you need to spray your cotton crop. It is more hardy, and BT simply means it is injected with something that makes it more resistant to pests. Madam Speaker, as we discuss the Cotton Industry Development Bill, let us look at other aspects of ensuring that our farmers have got the right kind of seed, be it BT cotton or anything that scientists can find to be better than what we traditionally used to have. Because we cannot afford labor, because we stopped being polygamous, we stopped having many children, and in the olden days it is children and wives and husbands who used to provide labor to the farms. So BT cotton and other improved varieties, as long as they are safe for human consumption, should be promoted. Madam Speaker, the Cotton Lint Marketing Board, for a long time, was seen as a position to be given to persons who had been in the opposition, and for them to be contained and tamed. You do recall that Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, when he left detention, he was appointed to be the chair of the Cotton Lint Board. And because Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was a truthful man, I don't know, today people tolerate truthful men, but they never tolerated the truthful man that Jaramogi was. Because Jaramogi, when he was appointed chair of the Cotton Lint Board, he said that there are people who grabbed land in Kenya. And as a result, he was fired from the Cotton Lint Board and sent into political oblivion. Those were some of the things that made cotton to be underlooked, underrated. There was underinvestment in the cotton industry because of political considerations. Also because cotton was grown in areas that were politically radical. Madam Speaker, the government, in terms of its industrial policy, in terms of its agricultural policy, saw to it that those regions remained marginalized and at the mercy of the national government. This bill should cure that problem. This bill should revive cotton growing. It should put money back in the pockets of cotton growers. It should allow cotton growers to work with the same kind of dignity that maize farmers have. This bill should ensure that the national government looks at cotton the same way it looks at maize growers. That it should, as it's providing free or subsidized fertilizers to maize growers, it should do the same for cotton growers. It should provide good quality seed to cotton growers. It should ensure that there is a market for Kenyan cotton. It should ring-fence the Kenyan local market. Madam Speaker, the AGOA, Africa Growth and Opportunities Act, that the Americans came up with to support African countries to spur local production and to be able to export things to the United States. Statistics show that even though we are making Levi's here in Athi River, that we are making Lee and all sorts of designer brands here in Athi River, all of which are extensively based on cotton. Most of that cotton is coming from Egypt, is coming from other countries, coming from Ethiopia, and very little of it is coming to Kenya. We need to address that. If AGOA is to be beneficial to the people of Kenya, it should not just be in the form of providing some sweatshop kind of labor for our people in Athi River. It should not just be because it is providing a real estate market or real estate boom in Athi River and Syokimau and related areas. It must also trickle down to the farmers. We must make sure we protect our farmers, but we can only do that if we promote the production of cotton, we promote the formalization of cotton growing. Madam Speaker, I also hope that this bill does not take us back to the Produce Marketing Board era. The Produce Marketing Board era, Madam Speaker, was a strategy that went alongside import substitution policies. And they've been discredited in many instances. Madam Speaker, that is the reason why, when Mwai Kibaki took over power, he came up with the strategy for revitalization of agriculture. And that led to the amalgamation of all the different boards that had been established. And we set up one super board called Agriculture, Food, Fisheries, and Livestock Organization. Madam Speaker, I know today, before this House, there are some proposals to break down AFA, because AFA has failed in its mandate. But AFA has not failed because it was meant to, or the managers there did not do a good job. AFA failed because the ministers of agriculture were always fighting with AFA. The ministers of agriculture, from the time AFA was established, thought that AFA had more powers than the Ministry of Agriculture. And so they've done all they can to bring back the powers that have been given to AFA back to the ministry. Madam Speaker, it's the same conversation we are hearing today, that someone can go to church and decide that the National Land Commission, which is a constitutional body, whose powers are derived from the Constitution, someone speaking in church because he has given a fat offering, can pronounce that he's taking away the power of NLC in certain areas and donating it back to the ministry. Madam Speaker, that is what happened to AFA, that the ministry and the mandarins in the national executive did not want AFA to succeed. As a result, we hived off fisheries. We are now hiving off livestock. We hived off tea. I think we have hived off crops, and now we're in the process of hiving off cotton. Let us make sure that if we are going to produce or come up with a cotton marketing board to be able to promote the products from this industry, that it is not another unnecessary duplication that is going to be a strain on the taxes and on the resources of this country. Madam Speaker, as I finish, this country, you do not need to raise taxes and increase taxes. All you need to do are two things: cut down on wastage, reduce the size of government, and then invest in productive sectors like the cotton industry, like the fishing industry, like the livestock industry. There will be so much money that even if people were paying a tax rate of 2%, there'll be enough to run the government. Madam Speaker, I support and I congratulate Senator Siengo on this wonderful bill that will put money in the pockets of the people of Homa Bay.